Dad didn't invite me to his promotion celebration at his lake house. It's just a quiet weekend with close ones, he claimed. Then I found out he flew in my stepbrother from Europe. What I did next made him drop his wine glass. Rowena, honey, it's not a big deal. Just a quiet weekend with a few people from work, my dad said casually over the phone, voice firm like he was already closing the subject. Oh, I answered, trying not to let my voice crack. Okay. No problem. Congratulations again. Thanks, Ro, he replied, and then the line clicked dead. I sat at the edge of my couch in Syracuse, phone still in hand, eyes blankly focused on the spot where Iris had left her karate belt tossed carelessly on the floor. My daughter had a way of living openly and loudly, a quality I admired and feared she'd lose if our family history repeated itself. That was my father's way, minimal fuss, minimal warmth. Growing up, I got good at not needing much from him. Still, something about being excluded from this moment. This professional milestone. Hurt in a way I hadn't felt since I was a teenager watching him hand a shiny new iPad to his stepson while giving me a maybe next year, Ro. Let me back up and give some context. I'm 38 now. My dad, Gordon, remarried about a year after my mom left when I was 16. My mom didn't just leave the marriage, she left me, too. Disappeared out west and cut contact except for the occasional birthday email with a smiley face at the end, like that made up for her absence. I stayed with Dad, who, while not cruel, operated like a man raised in the school of silent responsibility: work hard, don't talk about feelings, and keep your expectations low. Corinne came into our lives shortly after Mom left. She was the opposite, warm, chatty, well-dressed, and extremely proud of her son, Sebastian, who lived in London with his dad. Sebastian would visit during summer breaks and Christmas. We were civil, even friendly at times, but it always felt like background noise to the golden glow he brought out in our father. Sebastian was articulate, charming, and worldly. I was local, quiet, dependable. But I never made a scene. Never fought for attention. It seemed beneath me, somehow. Or maybe I was afraid I wouldn't win. Anyway, fast forward to the present day. My dad, a federal prosecutor, had just been promoted to chief district prosecutor in the Eastern District of New York, a huge career achievement. I'd heard about it through my uncle, not even from him directly. Still, I called. Congratulated him. Told him I was proud. That's when he delivered the line, "It's just a quiet weekend with close ones." That phrase stuck in my chest like a shard of glass. It wasn't until the next morning that I stumbled across Corinne's Instagram story. She's never been discreet. That's part of her brand, cheerful oversharing from a life of curated perfection. I was scrolling while waiting for Iris to finish her music lesson when the images popped up: fairy lights strung across the porch at Lake George, a long oak table set for what looked like 20 mason jars full of fresh flowers, and a caption that read, "Celebrating our amazing Gordon." Couldn't be prouder. Wineglass sparkles. I blinked, thumb frozen mid-scroll. Then came the next clip. A boomerang-style loop of people toasting with glasses. There was my cousin Laurel. Uncle Tim. Two of his colleagues I'd met at past holidays. And then Sebastian. Clear as day. Tall, polished, laughing. Wearing a casual linen shirt that probably cost more than my monthly groceries. I felt my stomach drop. He flew in, Sebastian. From Europe. For a weekend party I was told didn't exist. The betrayal was quiet but deep. It wasn't just a lie. It was the choice, the deliberate choice to keep me and Iris away. What was I? An obligation? A reminder of the before time? I sat in my car that night after Iris had gone to bed, staring out the windshield, thinking back to how many times I'd held my tongue. All the events I attended. The polite gifts. The small talk. I remembered Christmas 2 years ago. Iris had made a card for him, hand-drawn, glittered. He looked at it and said, "Nice effort, kiddo," then handed her a Toys R Us gift card with $15 on it. It wasn't about money. It was about investment. Thought. Priority. It hit me then that Iris would grow up seeing herself the way I'd been shaped to see myself, as the extra piece. The one who gets informed, not invited. Not anymore. That night, I called my lawyer friend, Melinda. I asked her if I had any legal grounds to request a formal share of the lake house, something I never cared to touch before, even though it was partially funded by money from my mother's inheritance. She said yes. I made a decision. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to fight. I was going to show up. And I was going to speak clearly. The next morning, I woke Iris early. Told her we were going for a drive. Packed a bag with a change of clothes, snacks, and a manila envelope. I arrived at the Lake George house just before 6 in the evening. It was a golden hour. The lake shimmered like glass, and laughter filtered through the trees. I could smell roasted chicken, wine, and summer berries on the breeze. Corinne opened the door, face frozen for a moment like she couldn't figure out if I was a hallucination or a threat. "Rowena," she said, her voice too high, "What? What are you doing here?" "Just stopping by," I said calmly. "For Dad." She didn't move, so I stepped past her. The living room was candlelit and cozy, the kind of scene you'd see in a Williams-Sonoma catalog. I walked out to the back deck, where the party was mid-toast. My father stood at the head of the table, glass in hand. Sebastian sat to his left. Conversations hushed. Forks paused mid-air. My dad saw me and blinked. "Rowena," he said, confused and tight-lipped. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I walked right up to him and handed him the envelope. "What's this?" he asked. I answered clearly, "A legal notice. I'm resigning as executor of your will. And formally petitioning for my share of this property." A beat passed. His hand trembled slightly as he held the envelope. Then he dropped his wine glass. It hit the deck with a loud, shattering crack. No one spoke. I turned, took Iris's hand, and walked out the way I came in. I didn't look back. We got in the car, and I didn't even start it right away. Iris, smart and observant like most 10-year-olds raised on more awareness than I ever had at that age, looked up at me and asked, "Was Grandpa mad?" I took a breath. "Probably. But that's not your worry." She nodded once and went back to pulling at the loose thread on her dress hem. I started the engine and drove slowly down the gravel path that wound away from the lake house. The forest flanked both sides, the trees tall and still like they'd seen 100 family dramas before ours. I didn't feel triumphant. Not yet. I felt clear. I hadn't planned to stay in Lake George overnight, but I needed space. I pulled into a small roadside in about 15 minutes from the house. Old-school charm, floral wallpaper, real keys instead of cards, a polite middle-aged woman named Margaret at the front desk who gave Iris a lollipop without asking. I paid cash, told her we'd stay one night, maybe two. That evening, after Iris fell asleep watching a rerun of the Great British Bake Off, I sat on the patio with a cup of motel coffee and my phone vibrating on silent. 3 missed calls from my father, 2 from Uncle Tim, and a text from Sebastian that simply said, "I didn't know you weren't invited." I swear. I didn't respond. Not out of malice, but because I didn't trust myself to speak without unloading years of small, carefully buried slights. The next day was Sunday. I expected silence. I got the opposite. My phone buzzed at 10:47 a.m. It was an email from Dad. Long, which was rare for him. I read it 3 times. Subject: Last night, Rowena, I wasn't trying to hurt you. I know you don't believe that, but it's true. The celebration wasn't meant to exclude you. I thought you wouldn't want to come. I know parties aren't your thing, and Corinne planned most of it. She said you always seem uncomfortable at these kinds of events. As for Sebastian, he asked to be here. He was excited. I didn't think flying him in would make you feel like you were being replaced. That wasn't my intention. But maybe I haven't done a good job of showing you that you're important, too. I guess I assumed you knew. We should talk. I don't want lawyers between us. Dad, I didn't know whether to laugh or throw my phone into the lake. I assumed you knew. The irony was sharp. That sentence felt like the summation of my entire childhood. He'd always assumed I knew. Assumed I didn't need extra affection. Assumed I was okay being passed over. Assumed I'd just be there, unwavering, dutiful, invisible. Assumptions are comfortable for the person making them. They're heavy for the ones they're made about. I forwarded the email to my lawyer. By Monday morning, Corinne called. I let it go to voicemail, not surprised at the brittle tone in her voice. Rowena, I just think there's a better way to handle this than making a scene at a dinner. You embarrassed Gordon in front of his colleagues. And Sebastian didn't deserve that. He flew all the way here, and you made him feel like he walked into a family war. The message went on, but I stopped listening after that. Corinne had always been a master at making you feel like you were the problem for reacting to a problem. I wasn't interested in defending my pain to someone who was blind to it. Instead, I started writing down everything I remembered about the lake house's history, who paid for what, when it was purchased, what my mother had said about the deed in her final letter to me years ago. Not out of spite. Out of necessity. If I didn't stand up for myself now, I never would. The week that followed was quiet. My lawyer filed a preliminary petition. The lake house wasn't just a vacation spot, it was family property, paid for in part by money that should have been left untouched after Mom's estate was settled. But Dad had quietly folded it into his new life, like her contribution didn't count anymore. The law didn't always care about emotional betrayal, but it did care about documents. And I had documents. 3 weeks passed. I heard little from my father, except one brief call that I let go to voicemail. This time, he sounded older. Not angry. Just tired. Ro, I've been thinking. Maybe you're right. Maybe I screwed this up. I'd like to meet you. Just the two of us. No lawyers. You name the place. I didn't reply. Not yet. I was still deciding if he meant let's talk or let me talk you out of this. Then, one Friday afternoon, Sebastian emailed me again. It was long. Longer than his last. I didn't expect much. But when I opened it, something shifted. Rowena, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. But I want you to know I really didn't know you weren't invited. I assumed you'd be there. When I saw you on the deck, I realized how off things must have been. You were always kind to me. I never felt like a real sibling to anyone, but you treated me like I mattered, even when no one was watching. I'm not defending Dad. He favors me. He always has. But it's not because you're lacking. It's because he's blind to what's in front of him. I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I'm in your corner on this. Sebastian, I didn't reply to him either. But I reread that message more than once. Meanwhile, Iris asked a question that cut through all of it. Are we still going to the lake this summer? We'd gone almost every year. Dad made a habit of inviting us for one long weekend in August, when the water was warm and the house smelled like cedar and sunscreen. I looked at her and said, we'll go somewhere better this year. Somewhere that's ours. And I meant it. By mid-June, the weather was already climbing into the 80s. Syracuse was sticky and bright, and the end-of-school-year chaos kept me just busy enough to keep my head from dwelling on everything too hard. But my lawyer didn't slow down. She'd already requested documentation from the county assessor's office on the lake house, and things were moving. I wasn't seeking a fight. That's the part people misunderstand when you stand up for yourself, especially within a family. You're either accused of being dramatic, bitter, or money-hungry. But this wasn't about property. It wasn't about money. It was about decades of being quietly erased. Every call missed, every moment passed over, Every little favor given to Sebastian while I played the reliable one in the background, it added up. People talk about betrayal like it's one big moment. But sometimes, it's an accumulation. And this was the overflow. The formal letter of petition for equitable interest in the lake house went out the second week of July. I didn't hear from Dad for 2 days after that. Not a call. Not a text. Then came a letter. An actual letter. Mailed to my home address. My hands shook when I saw the envelope. The handwriting was familiar. Dad's always had the kind of meticulous penmanship you'd expect from a man who never allowed emotion to clutter logic. The letter was short. Rowena, I've spoken with an attorney. He says you have a case. I want to fix this, but I don't know how anymore. You won't talk to me. I feel like I've already lost you. Maybe I did, a long time ago, and I was too stubborn to see it. Do what you need to do. I won't stand in your way. Gordon. I folded the letter and set it down without crying. I didn't feel sadness anymore. Not really. What I felt was grief, the kind that comes from finally seeing someone for who they are, not who you'd hoped they might become. A week later, I got a call from my Uncle Tim. He rarely inserted himself into drama, so I was surprised to see his name on my screen. I'm not calling to take sides, he said, the moment I answered. Okay, I replied cautiously. I just think your dad really didn't expect you to ever push back. And it scared him. Not because of the house, but because it made him realize he could actually lose you. Maybe he already did, I said quietly. Uncle Tim paused. Maybe. But I think you should meet him. Even if it's just to say everything out loud. I'm not sure he'd listen. Then say it for yourself, not him. That stuck with me. I waited another week. It was the last Friday in July when I texted Dad, if you still want to talk, I'll meet you. 1 hour. Public place. No pressure. How Library Cafe. 11 a.m. Sunday. He replied within 5 minutes. I'll be there. The cafe was quiet when I walked in. Sunday mornings tended to be that way, just a few grad students reading, one older couple playing chess near the windows. I spotted him right away. Same pressed shirt, same seat posture like he was preparing to argue in court. But his eyes. They looked different. A little sunken. A little unsure. I sat across from him, ordered nothing, and folded my hands in front of me. He started first. I didn't think you'd come. I wasn't sure I would. We sat in silence for a long moment. Then I said, you lied to me. He nodded. I know. You excluded me. Again. And this time, you went out of your way to bring in someone else. That wasn't accidental. That was a decision. He inhaled like he was going to argue, then exhaled instead. I thought I was protecting you from feeling out of place. You mean you were protecting yourself from guilt? You didn't want me to be a reminder that not everything in your life has been tidy. His jaw clenched slightly. He didn't deny it. I've spent most of my adult life trying not to make you uncomfortable, I continued. Trying to be easy. Low maintenance. But it cost me. And I won't raise Iris in that same dynamic. I never meant to make you feel second. I gave a dry laugh. You didn't make me feel that way, Dad. You just never made me feel like I was first. Not once. There was a pause. Something cracked a little in his expression, just beneath the surface. I know I favored Sebastian. I was proud of him in a way I don't know. Maybe it was easier. He didn't remind me of your mother. He didn't remind me of my failures. There it was. The confession I never thought I'd hear. You never gave me the space to be more than what I reminded you of, I said. And I've had to live with that weight every year since. He nodded slowly. I don't want to fight you over the house. If it means that much, take it. I shook my head. I don't want the house. I want acknowledgement. I want you to stop pretending like I haven't been here this whole time. I want you to realize that I showed up, even when it hurt. Another silence stretched between us. I'm sorry, he said finally. The words hung in the air like something fragile. I don't need an apology, I said. I need change. He looked at me, this time with something closer to understanding. Or maybe it was just age finally catching up to him. Iris is growing up, I added. And I'm not going to let her feel like she's a footnote in her own family. If she's going to have a relationship with you, it has to be on equal terms. Not crumbs. Not convenient. I understand, he said. I hope you do. We didn't hug. There was no big emotional crescendo. We left separately. I walked to my car and sat in silence for a moment, the summer sun hot on my windshield, my hands gripping the steering wheel not out of rage but relief. It wasn't resolved. Not yet. But it was said. It was finally said. The meeting with Dad stayed with me in ways I didn't expect. Not because it magically fixed anything, it didn't. He said the right words, but words are cheap currency when they come after decades of emotional debt. But it clarified something in me. I no longer wanted the house. I wanted what I had never gotten: acknowledgement, accountability, and autonomy. And I was going to get them on my terms. Over the next few weeks, the legal process carried on. My lawyer and I formalized a revised petition. We were no longer demanding a forced sale or direct share of the lake house but instead a financial buyout equal to the contribution from my mother's estate, with accrued appreciation over the years. The math was strong. The paperwork was stronger. But I was playing a longer game now. While the law worked itself through the motions, I quietly got in touch with a local real estate agent in Lake George, a woman named Ray, who specialized in high-end lakefront rentals. I wasn't selling the house. But Ray was experienced in something far more interesting: luxury property event rentals. I remembered something Sebastian had once said in passing at a Christmas dinner, years ago. This place is perfect for private company retreats, he'd said, swirling a drink by the fireplace, talking to one of Dad's law partners. Someone could easily make 10, 15 grand a weekend renting this to Manhattan execs. I never forgot that line. So with Ray's help, we ran some numbers. Set up a profile. Took high-end photos which, incidentally, included none of the family photos or Hale heirlooms. Ray had a pipeline of clients, film crews, retreat planners, even destination wedding organizers. She was ecstatic. By late August, the lake house had 2 full weekend bookings and 3 long-term inquiries. But here's the part where it came full circle. I had listed the property under a corporate shell, registered in my name and my mother's maiden name. All legal. All traceable. But not immediately obvious to a casual observer. My father had no idea. Not yet. I finally reached out with a proposal. Gordon, you said you don't want to fight. So here's the path forward. You buy out my claim, based on the adjusted equity from Mom's estate portion, and we put this behind us. I've done the math. It's fair, and it's final. Or, if you prefer not to liquidate, the property can begin paying that debt back to me. Directly. I've already arranged a structure. Think it over. Rowena, the next morning, I received a terse response: you've rented it out? This is my home, Rowena. Not a hotel. Dad, I let him stew for 3 days before responding. It was my mother's investment too. And you denied me a seat at the table. I've created my own. This is business, Dad. Just like you always taught me. You can either buy me out, or you can share the keys with strangers. The choice is yours. That was the moment things shifted. He tried to push back, insisted on having his attorney send a letter asserting his sole ownership. But my lawyer met it with documentation. Paper doesn't lie. Dates, transfers, deed amendments, all of it told the story he had tried to forget. He went quiet after that. Then, 2 weeks later, I got a call. I'll pay for it, he said, voice hollow. All of it? Yes. Fine. My lawyer will handle the paperwork. Click. With the settlement completed, I received a lump sum payout that changed everything for me and Iris. I used it to put down cash on a craftsman-style home in the outskirts of Ithaca, quiet, full of trees and light, with a big backyard and enough room for Iris to host sleepovers and garden club meetings. It wasn't flashy. It was ours. I used the rest to take Iris to Scotland for a summer adventure, something we'd always dreamed of but never had the means to do. We stayed in old stone cottages, visited the Isle of Skye, and hiked trails that overlooked the sea. She said, "This feels like magic," and I smiled knowing that she'd never feel like she was waiting for permission to matter. As for the lake house? Dad kept it. But he doesn't host parties there anymore. He doesn't rent it. He doesn't even talk about it. My cousin Laurel told me he had the dock repainted and the porch furniture removed. It sits quiet now. He tried to offer Iris a gift that Christmas, a check in a red envelope. I returned it, uncashed, with a note. Teach her how to build a campfire instead. Be useful. Or be gone. He never replied. Revenge doesn't always look like slamming doors or raised voices. Sometimes it's a woman calmly rewriting the script her family tried to hand her. Sometimes it's reclaiming what was yours all along. Not for the sake of anger, but for healing, on your own terms. And making damn sure your daughter knows she never has to beg to be seen.